Thomas Goes Fishing. Thomas the Tank Engine had his own branch line. It was his reward for helping James the Red Engine. The trucks had pushed James off the rails and Thomas had helped to rescue him. Thomas was very proud of his branch line. Each day he puffed up and down with his two coaches, Annie and Clarabelle. He always looked forward to something special. The river. As he rumbled over the bridge, he would often see people fishing down below. He often wanted to stay and watch, but his driver always said, "No. What would the Fat Controller say if we were late?" Thomas still thought it would be lovely to stop by the river and do some fishing. Every time Thomas met another engine, he would say, "I want to fish." But they all gave the same answer: engines don't go fishing. And that's just what James said as he passed Thomas that day. One day, Thomas stopped as usual to take in water at the station by the river. Then he saw a big painted notice. It read, "Out of order." Thomas was very thirsty. The driver had an idea. They would get water from the river. They found a bucket and some rope and went to the bridge. Then the driver let the bucket down into the water. The bucket was old and had 5 holes, so they had to fill it up, pull it up, and empty it into Thomas's tank as quickly as they could, again and again. At last they were finished. That's good, puffed Thomas, as he started off again, with Annie and Clarabelle running happily behind. They puffed along the valley until suddenly Thomas began to feel a pain in his boiler. Steam began to hiss from his safety valve in an alarming way. "There's too much steam," said his driver. The fireman tried to let more water into the boiler, but none came. "Oh dear," groaned Thomas, "I'm going to burst. I'm going to burst." They damped down his fire and he struggled on. "I've got such a pain, I've got such a pain," Thomas hissed. They stopped outside the last station and Annie and Clarabelle were uncoupled. The driver ran Thomas onto a siding right out of the way. He was still hissing, fit to burst. Then the guard telephoned for an engine inspector and the driver found 2 notices. They were written in large letters and read, "Danger, keep away." Soon the inspector and the Fat Controller arrived. "Cheer up, Thomas," they said. "We'll soon put you right." The driver told them what had happened. The engine inspector thought the trouble must be in the feed pipe. The engine inspector climbed up to have a look. He peered in and then came down. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "Please look in the tank and tell me what you see." So the Fat Controller clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise. "Inspector," he whispered, "can you see fish?" "Goodness gracious me, how did the fish get in there, driver?" asked the inspector. "We must have fished them out of the river with our bucket," said Thomas's driver. "Well, Thomas, so you and your driver have been fishing, but fish don't suit you. We must get them out," said the Fat Controller. They took turns at fishing in Thomas's tank. The Fat Controller looked on and told them how to do it. When they had caught all the fish, they had a lovely picnic supper of fish and chips. "That was good," said the Fat Controller as he finished off his share. "But fish don't suit you, Thomas, so you mustn't do it again." "No, sir, I won't," said Thomas sadly. "Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable." The end.